Greetings, greetings, greetings. I, your King, Clifford Jefferson, descendant of Godfrey, the fifth kind of Grand Jew, the reincarnation of King Edgar Jefferson or King Edgar the Peaceful. I'm here today with part 4 or 5. I'm not sure which one it is. We've been on it for a minute. Part 4, in regards to the authority that we have as the King's Bench. This has been a magnificent lesson. We have some great students from our members on the King's Bench here today, as well as those who are viewing from their own particular platforms. Greetings to you all. Once again, we're on part 4, and we're starting from the New Jersey boundary divisions as established by those tellers of the story as regards to those who usurped our state. We already understand that, you know, you got to have the keys in order to unlock those doors. And to think about it, people got so many keys on their key ring, you know, and you know, we only got one key, so that's got to be the right key. You know, when you got a bunch of keys on your key ring, then apparently that's not your house, because that means that if you got a whole bunch of keys on the key ring, and somebody get that key ring to you, that means somebody else had keys to that house. That makes sense. I'm gonna say it again. If you bought a house and somebody gave you a key with a bunch of keys in it, that means somebody else had that property part of you. Because if there's only one key, that key belongs to you. In this position, we're not talking about a physical key. We're talking about a spiritual key to unlock these doors that have been held by posts of those usurpers. Who are these usurpers? Read it in part 3, Brother Earl from the House of Burgers. Is he there?
Esquire.
Brother Esquire?
Keep you muted.
Okay, we don't. He probably his computer probably on pause. Archbishop, you can take up. Sister Walker, yes. Do us the honors.
Early English grants, 1606 to 1664. Queen Elizabeth I of England had given Sir Walter Raleigh a charter on March 25th, 1584, granting his company all the American lands they should discover between 33 degrees and 40 degrees north latitude.
Stop, Sister Walker. Now, as we can see, we're reading an article from New Jersey. And point 3 goes into the Queen Elizabeth I, the daughter of Henry VIII, who reformed our English Third Temple Church who reformed the English Church of England, which we had to reform again as a result of what he did. So here we got New Jersey testifying what Queen Elizabeth did in regards to a charter that was given by de facto monarchs under Queen Elizabeth I, because she established what they call the Elizabeth Religious Settlement here in Virginia. All right, continue to read, Sister Walker.
In 1603, Henry IV of the French chartered Acadia from coast to coast in North America and from 40 degrees to 46 degrees north latitude. In the next charter, involving at least part of New Jersey area, and the first English charter to involve all of it, on April 10th, 1606, King James I of England granted the first charter of Virginia, the land situated lying or being all along the seacoast between 4 and 30 degrees of the northerly latitude from the equinoctial line and 5 and 40 degrees of the same latitude. And in the mainland between the same 4 and 30 and 5 and 40 degrees, and the islands thereunto adjacent or within 100 miles of the
Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry about that.
Grandma, look at my master.
Okay. All right, well, this is the charter. We're going to have you read all that, Sister Walker. This is the language of the charter. All those who are Need clarity on that? You can go look up the Virginia Charter of 1606. You can start over here in the next paragraph on right here, Sister Walker. However, early 1664.
However, early in 1664, King James of England moved to reestablish the
King Charles.
English claims.
That was King
King
Charles.
However, early in 1664, King Charles King Charles II of England moved to reestablish the English claims in the area. On March 12, 1663 and 1664, the king deeded the following territory to his brother, James, Duke of York, later King James II. We have given James, Duke of York, all that part of the mainland of England, beginning at a certain place called or known by the name of St. Croix, next adjoining to New Scotland in America, and from thence extending along the sea coast unto a certain place called Pt.4, is that right?
Pt.4. Do the best you can, sister.
Okay.
Do the best you can.
Or Prima-Coit, and so up the river thereof to the furthest head of ye, same as it tendeth northwards, and extending from thence to the river Kenbequin, or
Yeah.
Kenbequin, and so upwards by the shortest course to the river Canada, St. Lawrence River, and northward, and also all that island or islands commonly called by the several name or the name of Matawax or Long Island, situates lying and being towards the west of Cape Cod, and ye north Higgensets abutting upon the main land between the two rivers, there called or known by the several names of Connecticut and Hudson's River, together also with the said river called Hudson's River, and all the lands between the west side of Connecticut to ye east side of Delaware Bay, and also all those several islands called or known by the name of Martin's or Martha's Vineyard, and the Nantucks, also Nantucket. This grant further the bases of both New Jersey and New York.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. So as you can see, when we went back to New Jersey, it's talked about 1664. But we go back here, New Jersey revised statute. Masterpiece, yeah, I see it. Certified statute 16.3 dash. Oh, not that. I'm sorry, brothers and sisters. I meant to go ahead. Boy. Because my screen had frozen on us. Hold on. What is this? 1-2. One second, I'll be with y'all. I apologize. Okay, here we go. My screen went black, so a lot of the stuff I had up there went blank. So I got to re-pull it back up. Okay, so are we talking about 1664 at the time of the Middle Colonies, and we need some particular modern day common law statute altered or modified to substantiate that. And we did that. It says federal tenured estates and incidents thereof taken away, discharged, or abolished from and after March 12, 1664, by Section 2 of the Act entitled an act concerning tenure. Tenure means holding. Passed February 18th, 1795. Shall so continue to be taken away, discharged, and abolished, and no such estate or incident thereof shall at any time be created in the manner whatsoever. Let's follow another qualifying statute to support this argument. All right. Read this for him, Sister Walker.
New Jersey Revised Statutes, Title 46, Property, Section 46, 3 through 6, Gifts, Grants, and Conveyances by State Allodial. Universal citation. Okay. All gifts, grants, or conveyances made prior to and after July 4th, 1776 of any estate of inheritance by letters, patents under the great seal of this state, or in any other manner by this state, by the legislature. You have to take that off.
Oh, sorry about that.
By the legislature thereof, or by the commissioners or agents or of forfeited estates, or by other lawful and competent authority under this state, shall be and remain allodial and not feudal, and shall forever be and continue in free and pure allodium only, forever discharge of all feudal tenures and the incidents thereof, and all other, you have to go up a little?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Services whatsoever.
Okay, so as then you know, feudal tenure is abolished and it'll forever be under allodial. Now, United States don't own land allodial. They own it fee and simple. The highest form of land ownership in America is fee and simple. So if they're making reference to 1776, before that or after, the land will remain allodial. And it says that in regards to letter patent, a letter patent is not a allodial estate. Why? Because of denization. Let's look that up. It's good, y'all. I'm telling y'all, this is good. Can everybody see this?
Loading up. All right, yep.
Okay, let's go back here and read that part again. Read right up to here.
All right.
Read.
All gifts, grants, or conveyances made prior and after July 4th, 1776 of any estate of inheritance by letter patent under the great seal of this state, or in any other manner by this state, by the legislature thereof, or by the commissioners or agents of forfeited estates.
Keep reading.
Or by other lawful and competent authority under this state, shall be and remain allodial and not feudal, and shall forever be and continue in free and pure allodium only, forever discharged of all feudal tenures and the incidences thereof, and all other services whatsoever.
Well said. Now, why are you smiling over there, Brother Scott?
Oh, just the word forever. That's
Forever.
Forever.
Now, so that means that any person who owns an inheritance estate on the land patent is forfeited and it remains allodial forever. So let's see who owns land on the land patent, letter patent. Read what that says, Sister Walker.
Denization is an obsolete or defunct process in England and Ireland and later Kingdom of Great Britain, the United Kingdom and the British Empire dating back to the 13th century, by which an alien, a foreigner, through letter patent became a denizen, thereby obtaining certain rights otherwise normally enjoyed only by the king's or queen's subject, including the right to hold land.
Wow, read that again. I'm shaking in my boots. Read that again.
Okay.
I ain't got no boots on, but I'm shaking.
Okay,
If I didn't have boots on, I will be shaking in my boots if I read that.
By which an alien or foreigner through letter patent became a denizen, thereby obtaining certain rights otherwise normally enjoyed only by the king's or the queen's subjects, including the right to hold land. The denizen was neither a subject with citizenship or nationality, nor an alien, but a status akin to permanent residency only. While one could become a subject via naturalization, this required a private act of parliament or latterly of a colonial legislature. In contrast, denization was cheaper, quicker, and simple. Denization fell into obsolescence when the British Nationality and the Status of Alien Act of 1914 simplified the nationalization process.
Okay, so as you can see, as we just read, most of these foreigners are denizens. They don't have a birthright here. Why you don't have a birthright here? Because it said it in what we just read under the statute.
Nor nationality.
We dealing with property and land. It says denizen, an heir can inherit the land entail. A denizen cannot. The only thing he can do is sell the land. And when you sell the land, that's called substitution, and that's a violation because that's done under the process of what we call common recovery. It says all gifts, grants, or conveyances made prior to or after July 4th, 1776 of an estate and inheritance, that means entail, by letter patent. So the inheritance estate was given to foreigners. It just said it. Estate inheritance by letter patent under the great seal of the state or in any manner by the state or by the legislature thereof or by the commissioner or agent of forfeited the state. They mean that the inheritance forfeited their estate. It said it all in one paragraph. The heirs have forfeited their estate. Why? Because it is ceded to the state. Why? Because it's not under the allodial. Why? Because there is no king. There is no king. Now that brings you back to why the King's Bench had to proclaim and declare that we were in a state of emergency. Why? Because the estate usurped our state from the contract or the original contract of 1606, as we proved, and the boundaries in regard to the New Jersey, which said that the boundaries themselves derived or created by grants given by monarch to proprietors, which was George Carter Red and John Berkeley, who surrendered that authority back to the crown. The crown passed to Queen Anne in 1702. Then it passed to what we call the minors of the British Empire through a headwise system established under King George I, King George II, King George III, Queen Victoria, and so on and so on and so on and so on. How do I know that? Let's establish this fact. Remember we said that the King's Bench was transferred to the Supreme Court in 1772? Okay, let's go here. First, before we go here, let's go here. United Kingdom's relations. Archbishop, break this down for him, please. I love my Archbishop. I love all my bishops, but my Bishop, CA, no disrespect, but you got a great teacher, CA. You got a great teacher.
United Kingdom, United States.
Where we at? Where we start from?
You can go back to the really the beginning,
me.
like in the was the origins.
Let's go to origin. Yeah. Y'all pay attention to what Archbishop about to read. Please.
Yeah, origins.
Oh, did I pass it?
No, this fine, right? You can go right
Okay.
to the beginning part of it.
Begin. Let me see. Okay, here we go. History, origin. All right, so the beginning starts there.
Okay, that was it. All right, so it says, after several failed attempts, the first permanent English settlement of mainland North America was established in 1607 at Jamestown in the colony and the Dominion of Virginia. By 1624, the colony and the Dominion of Virginia ceased to be a charter colony, administered by the Virginia Company of London, and became a crown colony. In 1630, the Puritans established the Massachusetts Bay Colony. They emphasized not only a pure religiosity, but also education and entrepreneurship. All right, keep continuing.
These are the northern colonies, y'all.
Now
Now
pay,
we'll get into the middle colonies.
now pay attention to the key terms that we're going to be speaking about, especially province. That's how we're trying to let our brothers and sisters know that you don't stay in states, you dwell in provinces. All right, so it says the British created the province of New York from the conquered Dutch colony, a New Netherland in 1674. The province of New Jersey was split off from New York. In 1681, William Penn was awarded a royal charter by King Charles II to found province of Pennsylvania. It attracted Penn's fellow Quakers as well as many German farmers and Scots, Irish, and backwoodsmen. The colonies each reported separately to London. There was a failed effort to group the colonies into the Dominion of England in 1686, 1689.
Stop right there. And as we can see, we know that the King's Bench was established here in Pennsylvania. William Penn was the founder of Pennsylvania. And as it said, that the colonies reported separate to London. Do you know you got a township of London in Pennsylvania? There's a township of London in Pennsylvania. Why would they name a township after London? They're creating new terms to fit the old terms, because anything you call new has the original term that it was called. So if you call it new, that means that it must have been Jersey before you start calling it the New Jersey, because there must have been an old Jersey first. All right, migration.
All right, during the 17th century, about 350 English and Welsh migrants arrived as permanent residents in the 13 colonies.
Stop, clarify that.
All right, remember, these are those so-called English speakers and those Welsh speakers. These weren't original English heirs. These are those denizens.
Well said. Well said.
And remember, they already told you that denization was equivalent to permanent residence today.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so in the century after the Acts of Union, this was surpassed in the rate and number by Scottish and Irish migrants. During British colony, okay. All right, during British colonization, liberal administrative, juridical, and market institutions was introduced, positively associated with socioeconomic development. At the same time, colonial policy was also quasi-mercantilist, encouraging trade within the empire, discouraging trade with other powers, and discouraging the rise of manufacturing in the colonies, which had been established to increase the trade and wealth of the mother country. Britain had made much greater profits from the sugar trade of its commercial colonies in the Caribbean. The colonial period also saw the introduction of indentured servitude and slavery. Now remember, indentured servitude and slavery became one and the same after the 1800s, but prior, they were not. All right, so all of the 13 colonies were involved in the slave trade. Slaves in the middle colonies and New England colonies typically worked as house servants, artisans, laborers, and craftsmen. Early on, slaves in the southern colonies worked primarily in agriculture, on farms and plantations growing indigo, rice, cotton, and tobacco for export. The French and Indian War fought between 1754 and 1763 was the North American theater of the 7 Years' War. The conflict, the fourth such colonial war between France and Britain and New France from the French. Excuse me, let me repeat that. The conflict, the fourth such colonial war between France and Britain in North America resulted in the British acquisition of New France from the French. Under the Treaty of Paris signed in 1763, the French ceded control of French Louisiana east of the Mississippi River to the British, which became known as the Indian Reserve in the Royal Proclamation of 1763.
Wow. Pay attention, y'all.
This is the key point right here. The religious ties between the homeland and the colonies were pronounced. Most of the churches were transplants from Europe. The Puritans of New England seldom kept in touch with nonconformists in England. Much closer were the transatlantic relationships between the Quakers, especially in Pennsylvania. The Methodists also maintained close ties. The Anglican Church was officially established in the southern colonies, which meant that local taxes paid the salary of the minister. The parish had civic responsibilities, such as poor relief, and the local gentry controlled the parish. The church was disestablished during the American Revolution. The Anglican churches in America were under the authority of the Bishop of London, and there was a long debate over whether to establish an Anglican bishop in America.
What's his name? John Carroll.
John Carroll.
John Carroll, y'all.
And John Carroll was a Roman Catholic bishop. All right. The other Protestants blocked any such appointment. After the revolution of the newly formed Episcopal Church selected its own bishop and kept its distance from London.
That is yeah, right here, American religion.
I know it's the same thing.
All right. The 13 colonies gradually obtained more self-government. British mercantilist policies became more stringent, benefiting the mother country, which resulted in trade restrictions, thereby limiting the growth of the colonial economy.
It's 3 o'clock.
Artificially constraining colonial merchants' earning potential. The sums small, but Parliament insisted that it was in final command and could impose taxes at any time. Tensions escalated from 1765 to 1775 over issues of taxation without any American representation in Parliament. Starting with from the Boston Massacre of 1770, when 7 men of the 29th Regiment of Foot opened fire on a crowd of hostile Bostonians who were harassing them. Talk of the revolution consumed the outraged colonists. Parliament imposed a series of taxes such as the Stamp Act and later the Tea Act of 1773, against which an angry mob of colonists protested in the Boston Tea Party by dumping chests of East India Company tea into the Boston Harbor. Parliament responded by passing what the colonists termed the Intolerable Acts in 1774, which were designed to strip away self-government in Massachusetts. The 13 colonies stood together. When the first shots fired in the battles of Lexington and Concord in 1775, there began the American War of Independence. The Patriots then took slowly control of all 13 colonies, ejecting all British officials by mid-1776, while the goal of attaining independence was sought by a majority known as Patriots. A minority known as the Loyalists wished to remain as British subjects loyal to the king. When the Second Continental Congress convened in Philadelphia in May 1775, deliberations conducted by notable figures such as Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, John Hancock, Samuel Adams, and John Adams resulted in a decision for full independence. Thus, the Declaration of Independence, unanimously ratified on July 4th, 1776, was a radical and decisive break. The United States of America became the first colony in the world to successfully achieve independence in the modern era.
Wow. Y'all hear that? Now, if anybody know about the Stamp Act was under the jurisdiction of what we call what's it called? Stamp Congress. Anybody heard that? Stamp Congress. Stamp Congress was known as the First Continental Congress. You had the Albany Congress, then you had the Stamp Congress, which was the First Continental Congress, then you had the Second Continental Congress. So the Continental Congress, i.e. the Stamp Congress, was a result of the Stamp Act that was being imposed upon the so-called colonists. They were upset about the tax, i.e. feudal, that were being created by the British Empire, and as a result of them assuming to be Englishmen. But you were a citizen, You don't have the protection as Englishmen. This is what King George is trying to tell us. How I know that, let's go here. Y'all ready for this? Remember we said the King's Bench was dissolved in 1772. And we know that the King's Bench, based off the Bill of Middlesex, was a result in the breakdown of the King's Bench between the Court of Chancery and the Courts of Common Pleas and the Courts of Exchequer. And the difference between both of them is one was a plea to the court and the other one was a plea to the crown. You follow?
Follow.
Okay, so let's bring us here. The Black Act of 1722.
23.
Read it.
The Black Act of 1723. The Black Act of 1723 was an act of Parliament of Great Britain passed in 1723 in response to a series of raids by two groups of poachers known as the Blacks. The act was expanded over the years and greatly strengthened the criminal code by specifying over 200 capital crimes, many with intensified punishment. Arson, for example, was expanded to include the new crime of burning or the threat of burning haystacks. Also, the legal rights of defendants were strictly limited. For example, suspects who refused to surrender within 40 days could be summarily judged guilty and sentenced to execution if they were apprehended. Local villages were punished if they failed to find, prosecute, and convict alleged criminals.
Stop. Now, once again, that goes back to the Bill of Middlesex. The Bill of Middlesex was a bill that was created for trespassing, right? And then they said once you got caught, you drop the trespassing and charge you with a debt or debt to new, right? That's what you call tax. Now, here we're reading in 1723, an act passed in regards to the Blacks passing through forests. Remember, when you read the Middle Colonies was flourishing with soil. It had rich soil, not like the southern, even the southern colony had rich soil, but the Middle Colonies were dense forests. There were forests at that particular time. All right, we didn't have buildings at that time. They had forests. But as we can see here, dealing with the Black Act of 1723, there were some things going on in regards to robbing the king's subject. This was mentioned in the 1606 Charter when they talked about robbage, spoilage, trickery to the heirs and successors, which was done by the colonists who set those plantations, i.e. the Protestants, i.e. the Methodists, Lutherans, and all those other religious colonists who were allowed to come over here and practice their religious faith. Prior to that, there was no free religious faith because there was only one faith, the Church of England. All right. So as we can see, based off we're reading right now called the Black Act of 1707, it said that people went around blackening their faith. Let's just see if we can look history on the origin of it. Let's see, what is that? Background. Read that. No, I don't want to read that. Let's read this. It says the Blacks gained their name from the habits of blackening their face when they undertook poaching raids against landowners. All right. One question I got to ask. Why would you paint your face to rob somebody who was a subject of the king? Because these people were called the blackface. Didn't they say that?
No, I called them the Blacks.
The Blacks. They call them the Blacks. And it said the act originated in the aftermath of the South Sea bubble collapse and the ensuing economic downturn. All right. So now what the heck is the South Sea bubble? Read it for yourselves, y'all. Somebody read, please. What does that say in the box?
Said tight public industry slave trade, founded January 17th, 311 years ago, defunct 1853.
Okay, slave trade. All right, let's read a little bit about the slave trade. Go ahead.
Company officially, the governor and company of the merchants of Great Britain trading to the South Seas and other parts of America And for the
How about that? For the for the encouragement of fishery.
All right, yes, the encouragement of the fishery was a British stock company founded in January 1711, created as a public-private partnership to consolidate and reduce the cost of the national debt. That's slavery. To generate income in 1713, the company was granted a monopoly, the Arrendamiento de Negros, to supply African slaves to the islands in the South Seas and South America. When the company was created, Britain was involved in the War of the Spanish Succession, and Spain and Portugal controlled most of South America. There was thus no realistic prospect that trade would take place. And as it turned out, the company never realized any significant profit from its
How
monopoly.
about that? Okay.
However, company stock rose greatly in value as it expanded its operations dealing in government debt and peaked in 1720 before suddenly collapsing to little above its original flotation price. The notorious economic bubble thus created, which ruined thousands of investors, became known as the South Sea Bubble.
Okay. Now, who was this act passed by?
George I.
George I. Now look who some of the governors of this bubble act. Hold on one second. Find it. Bubble Act. Now their bubble just got busted. All right. Bubble Act 1720. Royal Exchange Line Insurance Corporation 1719. The Act of Parliament passed 11th of June 1720 that incorporated the Royal Exchange and Line Insurance Corporation. But more significantly forbade formation of any other joint stock company unless approved by the board charters. Now, who was running of these charters? Oh, I had it first. I had it right the first time.
This time, King George.
You all right, Boo? Okay. Officers of the South Sea Company. Robert Harley, Governor. George Penson Wells, Governor. King George I, King George II, King George III, Queen Victoria IV, and King William IV, King George IV, King William IV, Queen Victoria. Today you can see all these monarchs who are ruling on the British Empire were slave traders.
Or slave traders, yep.
Slave traders, and who were they slave trading? The Black people. Negroes, colored, and Ethiopians. This is the reason why they created the Constitution. And as we said, Dred Scott case said that Black people, no matter bond or free, cannot be protected by the Constitution. Why? Because in that Constitution were no Black people. There were only Englishmen and women.
Mm-hmm.
As the successors, which they claim not to be. So if they don't want it, why we don't want it? We can prove when you go back to the origin of the kings of England, Atherton was clearly a dark skinned, for the lack of a better term, who looked just like us. So in lieu of that, let's bring us here. Concession agreement. Lord properties in the province of New Jersey in regards to the settlement of those colonies in lieu of the plantations that they were going to establish, which was called the antediluvian period, or the period where they had those plantations of slavery. And it started from 1664. Even before that, but they make a reference to 1664, and as you read in the New Jersey Revised Statute, all those feudal tenure laws that were in place were abolished in 1664, before and after. Why? Because the land has returned to a lolio under a king. It was already etched in stone for you, Archbishop.
And that's our timing with part 4.
All right. We're coming to our last part, part 5, and this will be our closing.